Rod, we were in the building yesterday, Levi Stadium. We got to see the 49ers probably played their best game of the season. I think I need to have a conversation with Jed because I was trying to go back and think of all of the games that I've been to at Levi's. I want to say I'm like 7-1. Like Jed needs to get me back in the building if he wants some victories here. So that was fun yesterday. We were both there with my buddy Brian Ruano. We got to see Robert Ramos, but overall fun game, great experience, and we got to see some really good, strong 49ers football.
Yeah, it was a tremendous experience. It was nice meeting Brian and finally being able to shake and give Robert a hug. It was nice after so many years of knowing him through the various online incarnations. But like I said as we got together just right now, it's really weird how the things that you don't notice, because I tried not to be in my phone too much. I had some business stuff going on that I had to deal with. But so I didn't know that at one point Brian asked how many sacks, and I looked that up later on into the game. I didn't realize there was at one point that they only had like 2 yards. That's pretty
Yeah.
wild. I saw the graphic that was floating around that the 49ers had like 310 total yards and they had two. And then I think Troy mentioned it this tonight that at one point they had more punts than they did first downs or something like that crazy. So yeah, it was a real dominant performance and it was really kind of cathartic for me because while you can make all the caveats in the world and the Bears being who and what they are and all of that. It was just good to see them thump somebody.
Yeah.
And then not, because for me it was like, okay, now we've got up and we've done this thing because we've played dominant or very good first halves of football, and then we've let teams just kind of hang around, and then we've won some, and then we've lost a lot of them. So I was my big thing is like coming out of the end of the second half was like, okay, let's go ahead and just keep our foot on these dudes' throats, and they did exactly that. They made that one nice play where Caleb made a great throw, and then Rome played ballerina and came down with the ball. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it was a complete utter um, curb stomp.
So, what does it mean for the big picture here? Well, the 49ers still have slim chances to win this division with the Seahawks beating Arizona. The Niners are 6-7, tied with the Cardinals. Rammies are 7-6, and they come into Levi's on Thursday. So we have a quick turnaround because we'll be back Thursday night talking Niners Rams. And the Seahawks are 8-5. Now, they may be one of the I don't even want to say worst because you can't say worst when you actually have an 8-5 record. But I was looking at the net points, and the Texans at 8-5 and the Seahawks at 8-5, they are the worst when it comes to playoff teams and their net points. So their points for subtracted by the points against. Seahawks are only plus 19, which is kind of interesting because the other thing that's interesting about Seahawks are they are a 3-4 at home. You remember back in the day how great of a home team they were. And then they're 5-1 on the road. So it's a little bit of like a weird season for them. But hey, if they can win the division in a funky season, good on them. But even like you look in the NFC South and like Tampa, like you're like, oh, Tampa's solid. They're a plus 54, which is way more than plus 19. And
Mhm.
and then just going down the line, Commanders plus 80 at 8-5, just in the NFC. So the Niners are very close to being eliminated, I'm assuming, if the Seahawks just win a couple more games. But at the same time, like you said, it was really the first time they put both halves together. In the second half, like there was some stuff where you're like, okay, they're just sitting in zone and they're just trying to let Caleb complete all of these short passes, keep the clock running. But then they would get the ball back and they could score. So they did keep the pressure on Chicago's defense. I would love to see them run the entire slate. Like, that would be awesome to see if they could do that. You beat the Rams, then you beat, the Cardinals are, I guess, the last week of the season. The Lions are in there.
Dolphins.
Dolphins, I would just love to see them win all the rest of the games and just go like, "Hey, like we gave a great effort and it, whatever the luck or whatever just didn't happen." What I don't wanna see, and we'll get into this as we kind of talk about the pluses and minuses, of the game. I don't wanna see, and this is not anything we can control, but the injuries. We just keep seeing these injuries pile up. Having the short turnaround Thursday, Bosa was out. Like, he wasn't even doubtful. This dude was out. Hufanga was back. Dre Greenlaw possibly will be back. So if they get a few of these people back on defense, you kind of start to go, I wonder if they can really play competitive football. And then, unfortunately, on the offensive side, with CMC being gone, then Garendo's gets hurt, and now you're at your fourth string running back, Patrick Taylor Jr. But hell, if Kittle keeps playing like he's 25 years old, then you got something on that side. So I'm not saying this is the most I'm looking forward to 49ers football, but at the same time, there's 4 games left. Run the table, man. Like, get
If
the
you run
started.
you finish the season on a 5-game winning streak, there's nothing, regardless of what the peanut gallery says about draft picks and whatnot, there's nothing bad about finishing the season on a 5-game win streak. I just think, it's probably not exactly as a matter of fact, it's not anywhere analogous, but, that 6-0 start or finish when we traded for Jimmy was the portents,
Mhm.
a lot of good football that was to follow after a lot of pretty bad to mediocre to outright bad football that had preceded it. So again, I'm not a superstitious person or juju type person, but I am when it comes to stuff like, tanking and, sitting dudes out. I just think that it sets your franchise back if you put yourself in a mode where we feel like under these certain set of circumstances, we aren't gonna try as hard as we can to win football games. Win the games. You'll be able it would be awesome for us to beat the damn Lions. That would be great. That would be a highlight of the season if we were to hang their second loss, or I don't know if it's second or third loss. No, yeah, third loss on them, and put their number 1 seed, um
Actually, second. They're 12-1.
wow, yeah, that's crazy. To put their number 1 seed in jeopardy at least, because I think they've got one more with Minnesota, and that would tie them. Because I know Minnesota only has 2 losses, but which is crazy. But, yeah, I just think that, and I don't think of it as being spoilers. I just think of it as us, righting the ship and playing the type of football that, you know, we know that we can play. It was the dogs, you have to call the dogs off of Sorensen for at least a week. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where you criticize the defense yesterday. It was excellent. And again, just putting all those places, putting those things together. The offensive line played very well, mostly. We still had leaky. I was able to watch several leaky plays by my man McKivitz, and then Jalen Moore. But again, as backups, that's fine. Ben Barch is Ben Barch for real? Are you going to pay him? Are you going to pay Banks? Um, Brindle kind of think he's cooked. So I mean, there's a lot still to be that we can glean from these last 4 games moving into the off season, which I think is going to be rife with intrigue. I don't think there's going to be much intrigue, but I think we'll play up the intrigue. Are they going to sign Brock or aren't they? Are they going to just, make him play it out in franchising? I can't see my thing has been all day is that what has Brock done for him to be the guy where you guys to take the hard line on? Just from a
Yeah.
relationship standpoint, that would to me would send a horrible message. Because that kid has done everything you've asked him to do. He bailed you out of a huge spot
Yep.
with the whole Trey Lance thing. Um, and it's time to, reward him. It's not, I get it, I guess. But
It's
it's
not
not
it's
enough.
not him, it's the market, right? Like, I remember Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose would say he's talking specifically about, NBA player deals. He was like, "You're not trading players, you're trading contracts."
Contracts.
And
Mhm,
what this
mhm.
is you have a quarterback. That quarterback is in a market in the NFL where there are very few positions that dominate that market. And so thus it is the position and the market that you're paying for it, whether or not you think Brock is Josh Allen or any of these guys. And he's more than likely not a top 5 guy. Could he be a top
No,
10 guy? If he's a top 10 guy,
yeah,
that money that he's going to make in 2 or 3 years he'll probably be the 6th or 7th highest paid quarterback. That's just how the
and
market is gonna go.
it's also a business, and he is damn sure face of the franchise worthy. So, I mean, even if he's not those guys as players, if it was my business, I would love Brock Purdy to be the face of my franchise for the next 10 years. Because I feel he's shown if we can put the pieces around him, even if he is not an elevator, you don't just discard those kind of guys in the hopes of finding who. So if not Brock, who? It's okay. It's easy to say, well, he's not Lamar, he's not Josh Allen, he's not Joe Burrow, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's fine. You might be right. But where are those guys?
Yep.
I don't think you're going to get any one of those guys. And I don't see anybody who's a sure shot of being that. And you're not going to be in a position, hopefully, in the next, you know, 5 to 6 years to be at the top of the draft to get one of those guys. So, love the one you're with is what I say. And I think you can do a lot worse than Brock Purdy.
The thing is you look at some of these drafts, right? The Trey Lance draft, Lawrence comes out, and he's supposed to be a can't miss dude, right? He's kinda miss right now. Like, I hope he gets better. Like, that concussion was nasty. And this is no shade at him, but some of this is probably Jaguars, but he has not been the guy who they thought he was gonna be so far.
But that's part of it. That's one of the things. If you when you get history tells us that when you're drafted to the top of the draft like that, it's not just your talent. You're obviously going to in most cases, going to a dysfunctional situation. And the situation more so than in any sport in the NFL matters. It matters who the owner is. It matters who the general manager is. It matters who the head coach is. And if you are in a dysfunctional situation, it's really hard for a player to overcome all of that, no matter how generational his talent may be. So, like I say, I don't root against the kid, but that's a perfect case in point you just brought up. At that draft, who
Yeah, so
has done anything out of that draft?
Lawrence, Trey, Justin Fields, who's on his 2nd team and cannot beat out Russell
And
Wilson.
you noticeably forgot Zach Wilson,
Zach Wil yeah, I
who
forgot about Zach Wilson, the number 2 pick.
rightfully
Oakland,
so,
and then go down the line,
and then Mac,
Mac Jones also on his 2nd team, and I think he's Lawrence's backup, isn't he?
right?
So,
Yep.
that was supposed to be a quarterback-heavy draft, 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 15 or whatever, and then this year, now we'll have to see how this plays out, but you do have uh, top QBs. We saw one, Caleb. Caleb didn't have a terrific game, but he looks like he's got all the tools to be something. But going back to what you said, does he have the organization that will build around him? That is to be seen. So far this year, that was not the right answer. Um,
Mhm.
Washington, they have their quarterback of the future. He looks fantastic.
Mhm.
He's got to stay healthy too because he puts himself into some danger. Um, Drake May, Bill Simmons is in love with Drake May. He thinks Drake May is going to be the next coming. Good for
You can
him.
see the talent. You
It,
can
it,
definitely see his talent.
and they got to put the pieces around him too. So it's just
Bo Nix.
both
How about
Nix
Bo
in
Nix?
Denver.
The 30-year-old Bo
Yeah,
Nix. I know he's
exactly.
not 30, but yeah, yeah. I mean, so you just never know. And Bo Nix, well, I guess Jaden Daniels is played probably the best out of all of them, but I would
Especially
have
on my
never
fantasy
expected.
team, that's for sure.
Yeah, he is awesome. I didn't think I wasn't expecting anything out of Bo Nix or the Broncos, and so you just never know. I say that to say you never know.
And Penix hasn't even got to play, and then the kid
Mm-mm.
from Michigan who
Yeah,
McCarthy had,
hasn't
he got
played at
hurt.
all.
So there are those guys to be seen as well. But basically, you have a guy in Brock. You don't have to play guesswork. As long as Brock stays healthy, you know what you're going to get. High completion percentage. He's going to make good decisions. He's going to have a couple games like the Buffalo game where ball just slips out of his hand in weird
Mhm.
instances. But
But I
in
like
two
his moxie though. Golly, I don't know if that's even a thing, but he's a tough kid, and he's got some, he looks like a all shucks dude, but that's bull. He's got some swagger to him. He thinks he's the best quarterback in the league, and that's all that that's all that matters.
When you and I were younger, we would have called him like Opie Cunningham or something that because of the way
Mhm,
he looks. But I mean, he's proven he went to NFC Championship game and then Super Bowl in back to back years, and in the middle of it, tore up his elbow. Like that's how tough he is at the same time, and that's what Shanahan needs in his system. He needs a quarterback who's gonna work through some stuff and fight through some stuff. And Brock has shown that he is a really tough dude in that smaller package of human being. So let's
and from
actually.
that book you put me on, I think the next step of his development is to be able to start pushing back on Shanahan. It's like, hey man, I want to run this instead
Yeah,
of this, kind of like Matt Ryan. I think
yeah.
that will be another elevation to his game. But yeah, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut
No,
you
no,
off.
no, no. That's a great point because Brock is Brock signs this contract. He's the most important person in the franchise. And right now, the most important person in the franchise is Shanahan because
Hmm.
he's the guy. And but Brock signs that contract and the 49ers invest all that money. Brock becomes that person. So that's an interesting dynamic as well, is just from the power standpoint of that. But I think Brock is also a good student, and I think he's also probably very smart and savvy. He may not do the Matt Ryan thing in the same way that Matt Ryan did the Matt Ryan thing. He may do it in a way that is maybe more collaborative so that it works in
Hmm.
tandem. I think that will probably be the way to do it. But it's a great point. So while we should just talk about quickly because there was not a lot to dislike in that game yesterday. But let's talk about some of the things that we liked, and I'll start Brock to George. Man, we were kind of thinking about George, is George going to be here for a long term? Well, the thing that Brock and George have right now, Brock and Debo do not have. So that relationship or that receiver QB combo doesn't look great. But the George Kittle, this dude looks like he's like fountain of youth. George Kittle, he was awesome yesterday.
Yeah, he really was. Um, yeah, I have to admit that I was somebody who thought that the best days may have been behind him, and that he might be looking to cash out, and go get a big deal somewhere like in Tennessee where he lives now, and can, just kind of on a big deal live at home and, just kind of do that thing, in the back nine of his career. But I don't think the back nine is here yet. And that is a real tricky thing with players in age at these times because, there was a time we are both, have been watching long enough to know that 30, especially at some positions, is a clear demarcation of fall off. And while, players take care of their bodies and all of that in ways they and spend more money than they ever have, in football, to me, it seems like more so than I don't watch a whole lot of baseball. And then basketball is kind of different. The fall off when it happens pretty quick in the NFL. But yeah, you rarely see a guy like a resurgence though, and that's what I feel like this season has been for George.
Mhm.
Was kind of a resurgence. I thought his days as a number one option. Obviously, I thought he could still be a productive player, but as a downfield threat and a number one option in an offense, I had kind of thought those days were done. But clearly I was wrong. He is having a monster season and had
Yeah.
a monster day yesterday.
Yeah, he was awesome.
103 yards, yak. That's crazy.
And Shanahan was finding ways to get him in space. He figured out how to get Debo a couple of times, but for Kittle, there were some big plays that they opened up for him. And when you can do that, it's got to help JJ and Debo, especially when it comes to their inability to separate. Just getting Kittle involved, I kept saying this all year long. It's like, what are the solutions to the red zone? Well, to me, the solution is you have these like utility guys like George who, you can fake block and then get him in space and see if he can actually create something. And they didn't really do a lot of that, but that's the thing that I was talking about, which is what they did yesterday just to get him open. I thought it was masterful.
Well, I
Another
think
No,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. My novices view of offensive football says to me that yesterday there was just a whole lot more space out there, and I thought it had a lot to do with Garindo and his
Mm,
explosiveness. He widens the field, and that was what I thought more so than anything with Debo this season was that the area was so constricted and congested that it was hard for him, because he's not a run away from people or he's not going to route you up. He needs space. He
yeah.
needs to be able to, run across the field and not have players, on his hip and running into coverage. And, yesterday there was a lot of green grass out there, like you say, for Kyle to play with in the offense and being in the stands, you could see that was what I love so much about it is you could see things open up and it's like, oh, is Brock gonna hit it? And he was on the money yesterday. He was throwing darts. And it was like, yes, every time. He was like, there I would see it, and just as I would see it, he would let it go right where I saw it was looking, and it would be right on the money. It was beautiful. Football is beautiful to watch when it's executed like that.
Yeah, yeah. They Kyle's entire game plan was working. Another thing that I liked, and then I'll let you grab on to the couple things that you really liked. Uh, for whatever reason, now I would have to. I was trying to figure out why this was, but where did the pass rush come from?
Yeah.
Where,
Yeah.
like,
I
the,
know their offensive line isn't very good, but nevertheless, I mean, it was a sight to see. I don't know, like I said, when Brian had asked, we were up to 6 sacks and
yes,
then 8 quarterback hits. I never really reviewed it to see where we ended up, but yeah, it was just crazy. Gross Manos
Gross
had
Matos had
autos.
3.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard
Leonard had
Floyd,
2.
and now he leads the team. He has more sacks than Bosa. And
Wow.
then, Malik Collins had 1, and then when you're talking about the quarterback hits, um, Malik Collins had an extra 1. in addition to the sack. So, yeah,
And
it just came. It
he's
just like I don't know if there were moments where I was like, okay, how come Caleb isn't feeling this pressure? So I don't know if it was coming so quickly that he couldn't even feel it, but some of those sacks, he was right in the pocket and they just crushed the pocket. And it was like they crushed his offensive lineman into him and they were just able to sack him that way.
and several of them, I didn't keep count. I didn't bring. It wasn't that serious. I was just trying to experience the experience. But I know that there were several of them that were coverage sacks where he just didn't have anywhere to go with the ball, which was great to see because that's not normally how our defense operates. They're just our secondary is kind of just trying to give the front time to get there, but there were several times, and they showed the replays where, when you looked out there, he just didn't have anywhere to go with the ball. And then I know there was that last one where you had noticed, and it was true when I watched the game. He had an alley to run,
Yeah.
but there was not anywhere for him to throw the ball. It
Yeah.
was just which was beautiful to see. It's pretty young back there, and it's nice to see again talking about developing towards the future and how many of these guys are we going to keep and invest in and continue to develop, and how many of them are we going to let go, and just because I'm tired, even if it means us taking a step back, it's not my team, but I'm kind of invested in it. I really wish we would take a step back and just draft a bunch of dudes, sign a bunch of undrafted free agents, and then just use that 4 years to develop them. And because I'm just tired of the 1 year scratch and dent pile free
Yeah.
agency, and just get some young guys and bring them in here and get what you can out of them and just draft and develop. And I know it gets hard to do that when you feel like you've got a shot at winning the Super Bowl. But I think this season will allow us to take a step back from that and just get on a track where we are more of a regular football team that has that builds up to being a good team and then is good for a little bit. Then you take a step back. And then, because those guys that you draft and develop, you're not going to be able to sign all of them. So you're going to have some attrition, but hopefully you're signing and you're drafting and developing. That's just what it is. You are replacing players through the draft. You're not hoping to swing at the fence every year, on this year's big free agent. But in this market and with the salary cap doing what it is, we should have the money when it comes time to do it to go get, resources should not be an issue with going and getting, free agents to plug the gaps. But, I think that we've gotten spoiled. I know I've gotten spoiled. I just don't think that like 5 and 6 all pros on a team is in today's modern NFL is a realistic it's just not it's not a sustainable model. So we need to get back to something that's more realistic. It sucks that we weren't able to um convert that talent into a Super Bowl, but it
Got
is
damn
what it is.
close 2 times though. That's gotta
Yeah,
be the
yeah,
thing where you're just like, "Oh, we're
yeah.
right there." And a lot of, Kawakami's been really hitting on this one, which is think about how long it took Andy Reid to get there. And we haven't even
Mhm,
talked about the Shanahan thing, but I think it's so ridiculous. We've talked about this in previous shows, but not today.
mhm.
The idea that Shanahan, you know, fans are upset, what so stupid. It's really, really stupid because they have been through, outside of Harbaugh, so many poor head coaches since Steve Mariucci. And I'm not even sure if Mariucci was that great of a coach. He was very young in his career, and he was kind of like the chosen one uh by the Yorks, and they kind of nudged Seifert out of there a little earlier than maybe necessary.
Yeah,
So
it was really just uh, he was at Cal locally, and it was just like you say. I think it might have been a little bit too soon for him, but
yeah,
yeah, it was, you I've been, I kinda have a tendency to troll online, and that's what I posted today. I wonder if Jed could fleece Jeffrey Lurie out of a first round pick for Kyle, and then we would never hear from him again, which is the opposite. Can you imagine giving Kyle that offense? It would. Not that I want Kyle to go anywhere, because
Yeah.
like you said, I think he's an excellent coach, and I think letting him out of here at 44 years old, it would be a colossal blunder. Because hell, if he just works to regular retirement age, you're talking about what, another 21 years?
Well, could
Get
he
out of
be
here.
their Tomlin? Like, that's the thing, right? You look at Pittsburgh now. Pittsburgh isn't always good, but they're always competing for wild card spots. And this year, they've been able to put it together, even by not having a fantastic
In the
quarterback.
in the NFL,
Russ is playing well, though.
18 years, not one losing season. That's
It's amazing.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that should be the model of what you want, because what you have is now. I don't know if John Lynch would stick around that long. That he,
yeah.
we would have to see. But Kyle he's a lifer. He's a son of a
Mhm.
coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's that's all he's gonna do with his career. I don't think Kyle wants to go into the front office. He doesn't want to do the McVay thing and do the broadcasting. Like, he is a coach. So if I would rather have Kyle here than have him anywhere else, and then us, similar to this quarterback situation we were just talking about, you have the guy, let him get through, and think about how sweet it will be if he does eventually get a championship on the Niners. Like, he
Yeah.
goes through all of this up and down, and he finally gets one. Like, his pops had to go through the Raiders situation before then
Mhm.
going to the Niners and then going to Denver to create his spot. It doesn't always happen at the same time for everyone. So the idea that we need to get Kyle out of here, it's like, if you can tell me who is out there who would be better for this team, then maybe I'll think about it. But
I don't see it.
Maybe if Belichick was 20 years younger, then maybe
Hey,
you make that move, but not now. I just don't see anybody who is, like, ready to step in and improve on what Shanahan has done.
I mean, even somebody, if you want to talk about in terms of accomplishments, not at the NFL level. I mean, I guess if Saban was infatuated, I mean, I guess you kick the tires, but that hasn't gone well in the NFL.
Mhm.
So I don't know. He would be the only one, like you say. And if I just think, turning the keys to the franchise over to somebody like Belichick, with when the window is going to be short, it just doesn't make any sense when you've got the future sitting right here. You just don't do it. And then it seems like, and I don't know, I'm definitely speculating now. I don't know if it's his father's influence and experience, but that was one of the big things about him and Lynch coming in as a pair. Apparently, he doesn't have any interest in doing both. He doesn't
Yeah.
really have any interest in being the personnel guy as well. Because I've always said Mike Shanahan, the GM, is the one who got Mike Shanahan, the coach, fired. It's just those are just two hard jobs. They're two separate jobs, and it's hard to do both. We've talked before, and we'll probably talk again about whether or not offensive coordinator and head coach are two different jobs, and it's hard to do both. But I know he ain't giving that up. But
Yeah.
it's hard to be the personnel guy full time and be the head coach. I think it's important to have some distance um between the two. And if you can build a relation, find somebody that you're in simpatico with on the type of football players that you want, and then have them go out there and get them. And then it seems like Kyle is just, content with playing on his whiteboard and, whatever toys you give him and trying to figure out how to deploy those toys, which is a great thing now. Like you say, I don't know. I can only base what my information on the media, but it really kind of gets to feel that Lynch is decidedly not a lifer.
Mhm.
So I don't know how long eventually ends up doing this, which would be a huge loss because he seems to be really really good at his job.
But at the same time, the Niners would have the pick of the litter of who would be out there because there will be so many personnel folks who would want to come to this program because of having a head coach and because of now having your quarterback set and because of their willingness to take big shots and bring and make trades and bring in CMC and that.
Honestly, honestly though, I don't know if I'd be too jazzed about working with Parag, but
Well, that is the
that's
look,
that's
Parad
that's just
Parad
me.
and Jed, right? Parag and Jed have had their issues with getting along with folks for sure. And you would hope that in Jed's experience that has kind of changed, but
It's just maturity. You'd hope that
right.
it's mature. He's
That's what you hope.
maturing.
By the way, Robert Ramos, who we were talking about earlier, who we hung out with yesterday, said he heard a stat that the Catholic Church has gone through more pops in the past 50 years than the Steelers have had head coaches.
Wow, that's crazy. That's wild. That's
uh,
wild.
so I got through my positives. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add as far as what you liked
You
while you were
started
there?
with George. I really liked the dominance of the defense. Like you said, I mean, it ended up being 7 sacks. I'm looking now. And didn't they, my notes show that they didn't get a single first down in the first half. Again, it's hard to like if you're not like keeping a box score, it's hard to know that when you're sitting in the stands. But I know that it they didn't do much. That was for
Mhm.
sure. Um then for all that we've harped on it all year, I would be remiss to not mention 4 for 4 in the red zone. I mean,
Yeah.
that was huge. And then the last one I've got is Garindo. 78 rushing, 50 receiving. And I
Great
mean, he
catch,
just
kinda turned his shoulder, and I guess the difficulty was that ball was in the sun, which I didn't even think about it when he made the catch, but
mhm,
he was looking directly at the sun over the shoulder kind of catch, very similar to to a CMC style catch that I thought was really good. So
mhm.
that was and
And
then
and he's really to me, he's got Mostert vibes.
mhm.
He is just big and fast and actually, just younger than Mostert was when he broke out here. So
He might
it
have
is
Mostert
a
injury luck, unfortunately, as well.
oh, that I hadn't thought about that. So I don't want to put that on the young man. But yeah, yeah, but just very, very impressive that, when that's your third string running back, I mean, that's that's impressive. And Patrick Taylor doesn't seem to be awful. I mean, he's a serviceable back. I mean, they've been very fortunate with because Patrick Taylor seems to me as a guy. He's probably not going to create a whole bunch, but if the guys up front block it, he'll go get what's there. Which is pretty much all you can ask for out of your fourth street running back.
And I kinda
So
wonder
yeah,
if they'll be a little creative with him in the pass game as well,
yeah,
more so than they're comfortable doing that with Garendo. And then I guess, I saw Matt Barrows during the game was tweeting that a lot of times Garendo would have to come out of the game because they just do not trust him in passing, situations when he's got a block. So they trust
yeah.
Taylor more in those situations. So, we'll
And JP
see.
seems good at that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And unlike, a lot of the pundits on social media, I'm not ready to write off CMC yet. I'm hoping that and again, I'm not Pollyannish in that, when you start talking about the injuries he has, especially to the Achilles, and
Yeah,
then, he's 30, and so it's a concern. But like I've said before, I think he's a guy who will continue to provide value as a receiver, even um later into his career if he chooses to do that and doesn't choose to give it up. So I'm not writing him off, and I think he can still be a very, very important cog in the 49er offense for years to come if he's able to recover his health. And so I just think that if we again going back to what we were talking about, if we finish strong, I think you know health was a real big part of what this season became, and I don't think that it's going to be like that forever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a byproduct of, going into week 20 for 3
a
years in a
lot of
row.
football,
Yeah.
a lot of football.
And
So
and
I
and you would
think that
hope that with the less tread this year does allow some guys, because remember when Bosa hurt his knee, and he was out for that whole year, he
hmm
trained and trained and trained and came back and won a defensive player of the year. So, you know.
and there's got to be a certain a certain mental fatigue that comes along with that. Because I know I heard both Steph and Draymond talk about that.
Mhm.
The year they won the championship, that we had a couple of scuffling years there due to injury and whatnot, and it was just they were able to mentally reset, not playing all those playoff games and watching those playoff games. When you're a champion, I'm sure builds a fire in you. It feels weird. You're supposed to be out there playing
Yeah.
um in the playoffs, so yeah. Not saying I'm writing off the season. I think this we still got like a 4% chance of making the playoffs, but so it's realistically we're
The
cooked. But
the one
you
thing that we wanted to record last night, but we were unable to record. And one thing that it did allow me to do is almost watch the Warriors game in real time.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you saw it. It's been all over the socials, but Draymond doing Steph's night night celebration, but doing like the evilest version possible, because he just wanted to get one on Rudy. Like, he hates Rudy with a passion. And so for him to, take Rudy one on one, get a little back screen from Steph, just dunk. He was on. So I got to see the Warriors come back and win in a game that I did not think that they were actually going to win. So that was nice. But yeah, they got the cup. They got the cup this Wednesday. They're semifinals of the cup, the Emirates Cup. All right.
Ah.
Anything from the negative standpoint? I couldn't really think of anything. There was we had some discussions about Moody yesterday, and like I don't. This is not anything I heard, but there was a moment where they were going to let Moody kick a field goal, and then all of a sudden they themselves called a timeout. So Shanahan makes a decision to put Moody out there to kick a field goal, and then he calls the timeout to then go, nope, we're going for it on fourth down. Like, not that I know anything about the psychology of kickers, but knowing how Moody has had such an up and down season after missing the extra point in the Super Bowl last year, and he gets hurt, and then he misses some kicks, and the fans are really, really hard on him. Shanahan on the sideline is constantly just so frustrated with kicker stuff. I was like, man, that poor kid, dude is so young. Kicking is already kind of like what did he called it? Shanahan called it a contractor's game.
Contractor. Mhm.
Oh, just the psychology. I don't know. I hope Moody sees a therapist at the end of a season if he doesn't already see one. Like, I just felt bad for the kid.
But see, that's one of the things I don't understand about Shanahan and Lynch. Is like, not to beat a dead horse, but Trey. It's like they didn't know he had only played like 50 games between high school and college. So it was like they thought he was going to be they thought he was going to be Brock, who had played like 50 college
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
I mean, it just wasn't going to be. So it's the same thing with like Jake. If you're going to draft him in the third round, you can't be ready to quit on him now. I mean, or play these mental games with him. You got to be, because that's one of you, like Harbaugh or not, and I love Harbaugh, nobody speaks confidence in his players
Yep.
the way Jim Harbaugh does. I saw it with my own two eyes. That when he resurrected Alex Smith from the grave.
And we
And
didn't think that
and
that was
really
possible.
and really the only thing he did was put his arm around him and say, "You're my guy,"
Yep.
regardless. Well, until he wasn't. But still, he got a lot of good football out of Alex Smith when I didn't think he got Alex to play in ways that I did not think were possible. He could not get him to be less risk averse, and that was ultimately what did him in. But it this game, I can't just like any sport or anything in life at this point, I believe, it's so much mental. It's what you believe and how much you believe in yourself and the team around you. It makes a huge difference and know and feel like they believe in you to get it done. And when it's the opposite of that, it could be a rough go. It could be a rough go. So like you say, I hope I hope that guy I'm tired of piling on him, but I did spend early last week, kinda shitting on him because, but our fan base, the internet fan base, and I'm gonna start delineating between the two, the internet
Yeah.
fan base and the real fan base are two different things. But the whole comparison to him and Justin Tucker, get out of here. You want to talk about Justin Tucker has built up so much equity
Yeah.
with the Baltimore Ravens at this point that even if he is cooked, you're gonna ride with him to the end. Um, Moody is the opposite of that. He didn't have any equity build up
Yep.
here.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not it's an apples and avocados comparison. But we need, I guess at this point we really don't need him much. I mean, I guess we should have kept Matt Wright at this point. Um, he looks pretty good in Kansas City right now, and he's banging them off the uprights though. But yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's gonna be an interesting off season. Do they just go all in on Moody, or do they actually bring in somebody um
and
to
this
compete?
poor special teams coach who was brought in to fix the special teams, and they've just gotten worse as the season has
He
gone
was
on.
supposed to be really good when he came here from Green Bay. He was I
And
mean,
you
I
kind of
guess he
wonder
has.
about the Shanahan ecosystem when it comes to this stuff. But again, you always have to bring up the injuries because, like you've said all year long, when you lose a lot of your depth, you also lose in your special teams.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's gonna be. And we got 4 games left, so I'm not necessarily. It's not time for off season talk, but it's nevertheless, it is gonna be a really juicy, interesting off season. I hope they, are very quick and decisive, like for better or worse, like they were with Wilkes last year. That whatever changes they're gonna make, they make them quick, and then we can just get about and whoever needs to be signed, Brock, we go ahead and get that out the way, and it doesn't drag on into August like other contract negotiations
Yep.
have, so that we can get into OTAs and training camp and everything as one, unified, knowing who's going to be here and where they stand with the team and all that. But we've got plenty of time to talk about that. So I guess we need player of the game, huh?
We do need player of the game, and I'll set up the drop here. But when you were saying Harbaugh believes in his guys, he said to the press that Justin Herbert was one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
uh, he
Love that
also
guy.
says he's the toughest quarterback. He also says that Harbaugh says himself he was the toughest quarterback in NFL history. So I guess you got to kind of take that for what it's for.
All right, let's go. Coach Singh, player of the game.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
All right, you had some good ones to choose from this week.
Well, and that's why I'm kind of going to. I can't. I'm down to 2, and I
Yeah.
can't really pick. So you're going to be the deciding vote.
Okay.
Not that I'm shucking my responsibility, because I really feel the responsibility and the weight of the coach saying player of the week each week. So I take it with very serious. But I really cannot delineate between George and Brock. I really can't.
Well, let's do a quick recap of the players of the week, and we'll kind of talk about how many each have. So week 1, where they beat the Jets in week 1, it was Jordan Mason. Week 2 was Fred Warner. Week 3 was Juwan Jennings when he had 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns. Week 4 was Fred again. Week 5, BA. Week 6, Debo. Week 7, George Kittle. Week 8, George Kittle. Week 9, they had a bye. So week 10 was Brock. Week 11, JJ again. Week 12, George Kittle. And George Kittle has, if he's not the most valuable player of this team, he's really close. It's what he's one of few. I am gonna say, I think if you asked George Kittle who the player of the game was, he would have said it was Brock. And I think that we should give it to Brock. This has been a season for Brock in which maybe he's not as much of the dandy of the NFL as he was last year. Steven Ruiz probably pumping his chest a little bit more about his rankings of Brock from last year and this year. But I think the ball, like we saw it. We saw what happened when Brandon Allen had to play that 1 week.
Mhm.
He played as well as he possibly could, but they had no chance to win. And so when you watch Brock play and you watch him dice up and you watch him put Shanahan's game plan into reality, the team can just hum, and it almost looks like they're just at a different level. And unfortunately, they have not always been like that. So I would lean Brock because I think Brock playing as well as he did really set the tone, and George Kittle was able to turn a lot of that into some good offense. So I like both of them. They
Man,
would have
if
been
you
my
can,
they would have been
it
my
is.
two.
Let's go Brock then. Because man, I saw it with my own two eyes yesterday. If you can keep Brock clean and he is decisive, it's beautiful to watch, man. He can really, really spin it. But again, that's been our both of those things have been our challenge as keeping him clean. And then when he starts to not trust what he sees and starts holding on to the ball and starts trying to, make plays, which is a great thing to have. But I think he is at his best when he's getting back there, just gripping it and ripping it and not trying to be a playmaker, just getting the ball out of his hands
Yeah.
and letting his playmakers do the job. And that's what he was yesterday. And he was accurate and he was decisive. And it was just beautiful to watch. So I'm very comfortable with Brock. This was the first week, honestly, when you went through and you just outlined the first 13 weeks or 14 weeks, I guess it technically would be, with the bye. It was never a week where it was to me, it was a doubt who the player of the week
Mhm.
was. It was pretty anticlimactic. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I mean, it's almost like I don't know who's gonna catch George for, player of the year at this
Yeah.
point. I mean, he has been a revelation. I mean,
George's
which
gonna
is
get some all
crazy.
pro votes.
Oh, I said that while we're sitting there. I don't know who at tight end has played better than him this year. I mean, I guess, Bowers will get some nods for coming on late, but I think consistently, and then when you add what he brings in the blocking game, and then I know that nobody else thinks about this stuff, but he is just him and Fred both, I would say, are like just the pulse of the team.
Mhm.
And I just think from the outside looking in, I'm not in the building, so I got in an argument today about, when Shanahan said that Demo and Brock talk to the team because the team respects them and they're leaders. And well, Fred Warner is the leader. Man, I ain't never been in that building or in the locker room, so I can't argue who the leaders are or what and who feels about what who. But I know from as a forward facing player, Fred and George are very forward front facing leaders of the team and are spokesmen sort of. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that people would rally to Brock.
Well, and
You
the
know,
the
it's,
other the other way to look at it is
it's
when your team is in a bit of a funk, a lot of times you're hearing from the same guys. And those
Mhm.
same guys, someone like Fred and George, they have also been around this team for a long time. So it's actually kind of fresh to hear from some new voices. Demo, Brock's your quarterback, so you're gonna listen, and he's not gonna be rah rah. Like he's gonna speak sort of quietly and let his actions show. But I actually like it because, not to say George or Fred aren't going to be with this team for a while. I hope they're with the team for as long as they keep playing. But you do need new voices. There's so much turnover in the NFL that someone like Demo, who the team just invested a lot of money in to keep him
Mhm.
around. You're like, okay, young fella, like, you got the contract now. How are you able to back that up with your play? And if he does, then I think that's a nice little kick in the pants to the team. And that's not to say that Fred or George also weren't a part of that. I'm sure that they
Right,
were.
of
I'm
course.
sure.
I mean,
I'm sure
on
Debo was.
any
I'm sure Trent, even though he's kind of been
mhm.
out there, like his voice is still in there. But
On
just to
any good
see them,
team,
yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of leaders. So yeah. And we see the same thing happening up at Chase. It looks like, they're trying to hand JK a sort of leadership role with that team to see if he can handle it. It seems to me. I'm curious to see what you and Bride think about that on the next death lineup.
yeah. I mean,
So
we both really love JK, and we feel like this moment of, like, all of a sudden, like, oh, we got to see what JK can do. Is like, how about the last 2 years when we could have done the same thing? Like, we're doing that now. But yeah. Last thing I was gonna say was, not only could it have been Brock or George, and those would have been my 2 picks as well. Gross Matos with 3 sacks, nothing to sneeze
man,
at.
that's pretty strong. That's pretty
And
strong.
Robert Ramos had Garendo just because it was his first start. And if he doesn't get hurt, he probably does cross that 100-yard mark. And then,
Mhm.
you could also throw in Leonard Floyd in there, who had 2 sacks as well. So really
Mhm.
some pretty good options there for player of the week. So you and I will be back on Thursday night. Rams put 44 up on Buffalo yesterday.
Woo. That man, I thought, man, that's why you don't be listening to the internet fans. You guys told me that Matt Stafford was cooked. He
The
didn't
dude
look.
has 3,300 yards passing this year with 4
He
games
was.
to
He
go.
was. He was cooking, is what he was doing, and
Yeah.
then that damn Josh Allen is just a cyborg. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about that guy. He is incredible to watch.
They're like, "How about you
Incredible to watch.
take Gronk and turn him into a quarterback?"
It is it's a cheat code. It is not fair. It's
Yeah.
not fair, that guy. But yeah, I'll be there. Somebody had actually offered me a real good deal on tickets, but there's no way I'm gonna trying to get back home on a
Yeah, it's
Thursday
a
night
late
to
one.
have to deal with because I gotta be up Monday, Friday morning. So nah, that as much as I would even if they were giveaways, I don't think I could do it because it was hell trying to get home yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
Um, and as it turns out, after all after all the walking I did to get to a station where they would pick me up, by the time I got there, I could have just stayed where I was and just waited the the waited the moratorium out. And so it didn't do nothing but give me my steps. But yeah, it was good. I thank you. I want to thank you once again, and then Brian, if he's listening, it was a pleasure meeting him, and then Robert, of course, it was great finally being able to shake his hand and after so many years of interacting in the various iterations of We Want Winners. So
Yeah.
it was very nice. It's always nice to meet my Facebook friends in real life. So
Yeah, man. So we'll be back after the Rams, and the Niners really owe the Rams one after that week 2 game where they kind of gave Stafford took that game away from them, but they
mhm.
just playing with their
Well,
food
but
and
we helped. We didn't. We helped. We
Yeah,
definitely helped.
just it's a very disappointing and kind of like the really one of the defining games of the season. I think that Seattle
Mhm.
game was another one. So I think the
We start
Niners
talking
own
about
one.
what ifs. Yep.
So
Yep.
hopefully,
And that was
they'll bring it. And like you said, Stafford's balling. Kyron Williams is over 1,000. Puka had a good game, really good game. Cooper Cup is probably not 100% healthy, but that dude's probably never going to be healthy. I think that the Niners will be able to do something offensively because if you look at the numbers, Rams give up a decent amount of points as you saw with the Buffalo game. And I think if the Niners, for whatever Shanahan showed on yesterday, if he can continue that and keep it going, I think the Niners are going to put some points up on the board. Now they're also going to have to stop the Rams, whose offense was cooking yesterday. So I think it's going to be a pretty good game, and I'm less worried about kind of McVay shoving it up Shanahan's rear end than I was before they beat the Bears
how
yesterday.
the
So
hell did they get Puka Nakua in the 7th round? That just doesn't even make any sense to me. That dude is a monster. He really is. I hate the fact that we're gonna be playing against him for the next 10 years.
I
That
know.
is just it's just awful. Awful, awful, awful. Yeah. So I and just to show you my fandom, I will be absolutely rooting against my financial interests rooting against the Rams because I have a 5-1 ticket for them to win the division.
Oh
So
wow.
I hope they go ahead and lose this game and we crush their dreams.
Yeah.
So even though it'll cost me some money. But
And my Thompson to Clark co-host Brad, big Rams fan. So I'm sure when he and I get back together, we'll have some discussion about Niners and Rams. And we've had some big ones over the last few years too. So all
yeah,
righty.
arrow up for the Rams. They look really good going forward. I hope we can get our arrow going up for the future
Yeah.
with this offseason. But yeah, we still got 4 games to go and we're going to finish strong. We're going to sweep the slate and go into the offseason with positive vibes. That's my
That's what I'm
New
hoping
Year's.
for.
I hope that's our New Year's resolution.
Yeah. I like
resolution.
that. I like that a lot. All right. For Rod, we'll be back Thursday night. For Rod, I'm Double G. We will
We'll be
see you
here.
when we see you. Peace out.